Hey, welcome back to City Skylines 2. This video was just supposed to be a fun, easy little building, but the more I play this game right now, the more I notice things that are just not looking that great or not working as intended. So that will unfortunately be one thing I will show you today. But we are also going to do some building. I'm going to build a dam because I'm really curious how they differ from City Skylines 1, how water physics work in more detail, and so on. So let's build a dam, which will also be an opportunity to fix the city districts around it. But let's jump into the live game where I will explain it more. Alright, so this is the city from last time, just as we left it, and today I'm going to focus on, let's just put it into view, pretty much this entire area, okay? So this entire city district, because it's not exactly looking all that great. I already started reworking it, starting from this side, but I'm going to prepare some kind of nicer looking residential, high density residential area over here and just rework the area around the street. Then I'm going to build like a bigger medium density area right here. By the way, this area is like insanely sloped, so that's actually going to be really difficult. And of course, this valley is perfect for a dam. So I'm going to build it right here in front of this bridge. I'm going to slightly rework this bridge. And then I'm actually going to build a second dam, which is going to be right down here. Because as you can see, there is a huge elevation difference. And then I'm also going to rework this bridge because I'm going to be planning some expansion into that area. So this road, let's just make it go there instead of down here into this basin. I'm kind of going to leave this basin unfinished after today. But anyway, let's go build. So right away, I'm going to start building those dams because they are going to just define this area. Just like in CS1, they also have a road on top of them. So it will also be a connector across the valley that I need to somehow consider when doing all the plans for the neighboring districts. What I'm doing right here is basically measuring how tall I need to build or I can afford to build the dam. Because I obviously don't want to create like a huge lake on top of it that's just going to flood the entire city. So I'm just using the elevation tools in here, just looking at the grade and seeing where might the lake end, basically. So that, like I said, I'm not going to flood, for example, the finished downtown. What's kind of nice about CS2's dams is that you can actually build them curved or straight. If I'm not mistaken, in CS1 you could have only built them in one way, basically. But here you can do them in many different shapes. You can do them even in S-curves, actually. You can do them in very crazy shapes. So there is some potential for some interesting builds. Unfortunately, right when I started building the dam, I just noticed yet another glitch in CS2, and that is, if you are not going to build it from and to the same elevation, then the road on top of it is just going to be broken like that. So you actually need to prepare the terrain, flatten it to the same height on both ends of the valley, and then it's going to be built all right, like I did it in here. Now, I decided to build it curved and not straight because dams usually in these kinds of deep valleys are like that. So it's forming this kind of arch that's obviously just using the walls of the canyon or the valley as the supports as well. So the dam doesn't need to be that big, that heavy, and it's just looking, nicer, I guess. So the second one is going to be exactly the same. Now, after I had the dam already present in here, I just decided I'm going to go for the rework of this district. So I'm first going to rework this bridge, kind of straighten it vertically, and I'm just going to get rid of this low-density neighborhood completely. I'm going to wait for the dam to finish. Oh yeah, by the way, you could have seen there that sudden switch between weather. In here, I think I sped up this footage like 20 times or something. So in here, it was like just a flash, but well, in real time, it's also just a flash, which is really weird. When you, for example, have rain or especially snow in the winter, you will see it later in the time lapse, then it's like night. Yeah, the sun is just not visible at all, which is, kind of realistic. Yeah, sure. But the game is just way too dark during those weather events. And well, then it's just like, a flash and suddenly sunlight again. So that's not exactly looking all that great, I'm sorry. Now, I'm just going to go for that second dam already. So it was actually taking quite some time for that first one to fill. Like I said, that time lapse there was very heavily sped up. But then, it was just working. The dam is, by the way, producing a lot of energy. I think something like 70 megawatts, the upper one. This lower one, something like 50 or 45, so it's smaller. But I think I promised you that in the previous episode, I promised you I'm going to build the nuclear power plant as well. At first, I was thinking that this episode will be about power generation, but these dams are producing so much electricity right now that the city really doesn't need it at all. I think I'm producing like more than twice the amount that I will actually need at the end of today's episode right now. So I really have absolutely no need for additional power generation. I might even start getting rid of those not exactly all that great looking windmills on top of the mountain ridges on the sides of the city. So, these dams are absolutely fine right now. Even during the winter, actually, I'm still producing more than enough. Right. So yeah, we will just have to wait for some, more city expansion. But in CS2, city expansion is actually, at least I think, going faster. You can definitely just spam high density, if you have the demand, you can just spam high density living and it's going to rise the population a lot very fast. But I don't really want to do that, just the quantity. I want to do some of the districts a bit more nicer looking. So we are probably not going to expand that much, even though I say that, but by the end of today's episode, we're going to have something like 115,000 people or something like that. So it's actually quite a lot. And, in the next episodes, we are just going to advance more and more. And at some point, we are obviously going to reach the limits of the power generation and services and everything else. So we will have to start doing some proper changes. In this particular corner block, I started some like a different approach to zoning. So first of all, the one near the main avenue, that's the mixed density or the mixed commercial and residential. I started doing the thing where I just gave up zoning the entire block at once because it's just going to randomly pick building shapes that are just not fitting together at all. So I'm just doing the 6x6 corner buildings every time. And then these particular buildings, I think they only have a 6x6 row version and then 4x6. There is, for example, no 3x6 building and some other shapes. So I was just doing that even with this high density zoning right here. You can see that on the left there that I just created like different shapes and I just tried if they, even exist and how they look. And I figured that I actually quite like this 2x4 shape for the high density residential because it's going to spawn something like a tall tower, which is actually going to fit in this place rather nicely. It's just going to be a single building. Yeah, that's usually how City Skylines 2 is. There is only one building for one, footprint size. So yeah, it is what it is. But in this particular case, that's actually going to play in my favor because I really want to have these buildings all the same by doing this kind of zoning technique. So as you can see, they are popping up right there. They do have some differences in color, in the roof color as well. So, at least there's something. And I kind of wanted to have that. So I guess in the end, no complaints for that one. And it's just going to be like something different with the zoning. It's not the usual just spamming of zoning everywhere between those blocks, but like carefully selecting the shapes based on the knowledge of what's going to be built on what footprint, right? And some of the edges that did not really fit, I just put some low density commercial because I kind of want to have some building height variations in there. Like I said, it's just something different. Now, in between these buildings, we're just going to build this twisting pedestrian path because you can never go wrong with twisting pedestrian path. It's a nice detail. It's obviously highly functional as well. People are going to be using it. So yeah, just something different tried in this particular neighborhood. Now, this place heavily needed some sort of leisure or some kind of, leisure, so that all those buildings, all those streets around it were red in that leisure info view. So I really had to place down something. Unfortunately, in City Skylines 2, we don't really have those park life CS1, leisure facilities where you can just place them to the pedestrian paths. They actually all require road connections. So they are kind of weirdly placed. You cannot really do like custom parks just yet. And you just have to span roads everywhere, which is just not ideal if you want to have these customized parks. Not to mention that they all have those that like weird manicured looking grass texture, which is looking visibly different from the normal grass. So that's just not looking great, and it's just so much better to do these parks only cosmetic, just like I'm doing over here. So slap some pedestrian path in there that's probably not even going to be used, and some kind of key in the form of these roads. There are no separate keys in CS2, and then just place down trees, wait for them to grow, and be done with it, really. So at the start of this little park, I placed that huge Ferris wheel because why not? It's kind of a nice building and it has a huge bonus for the leisure. So I think it's actually providing leisure even into these like taller towers there on the left, which are actually quite far away. Yeah. This place does look a little dystopian, perhaps. So let's reinforce that feeling with some filters, with some kind of Soviet Union's filters in this particular view. I was just trying it out, seeing what the game could do. It's raining because it's always raining in CS2 for some reason. So that definitely played into that entire aesthetic right there. Well, anyway, enough of that. So let's now return to that second dam down below, and I'm just going to continue building this district. So I'm going to build this new bridge. I'm gonna just rework it. I'm gonna place it in front of the dam this time. It has to be really elevated because there is that huge elevation difference, as you can see. So I need to connect it to the main avenue somehow nicely. Unfortunately, it's still not going to be very nice because there are basically no tools to control elevation properly. Like I mentioned in that review, most of the changes to road building in CS2 are related to the horizontal geometry, not really vertical. So these kinds of twisting roads, it's basically the same as in CS1. You have to heavily prepare the terrain in order to make them somehow smooth, and even then, it would be just so much better if I had something like Network Multi-Tool and at the very least move it, of course. So just like on the other side, I'm going to completely demolish this entire district right down there. And I'm just going to get rid of that bridge into that basin. And like I said, I'm just going to leave the basin, like it is right now. It's going to be actually disconnected from the entire world, but yeah, I don't know. If you have any ideas, guys, for the basin area next to the cargo harbor, well, actually opposite the cargo harbor, then let me know, because otherwise I'm just going to turn it into some kind of generic housing district, which is probably going to be fine as well, because I do want to increase the city's population, like reasonably. So I definitely don't want to waste area. So, if I'm not going to figure out a better idea, I'm just going to make it into some proper residential. Now, here I wanted to prepare some kind of a grid for like those row houses. The row houses are going to be perfect for this area because they will be built on that 1x6 plot, and I'm going to build them parallel to the contour lines. So they're actually not going to disturb the terrain as much as other buildings would, and they are going to look even okay. So it's pretty much the only thing that I can do on that very sloped area, apart from turning it into a forest, right? But like I said, I kind of want to have the city big, so don't want to waste much space. But at the same time, I wanted to come up with something more interesting than just a boring 90-degree grid. Well, I mean, it is gonna be a 90-degree grid, but at least it's not gonna have that many like straight roads. There are gonna be these dead ends here and there, and these kinds of like offsetting blocks and things like that. So, that's gonna be at least something different with the zoning. Then I'm just going to rework this medium density block between the main avenue and the industry. So nothing exactly special over there. But let me finally show you one really strange thing that I saw in the game when I was building all of this, all right? So I was just randomly looking at my city from above. I noticed a car crash, so I decided to investigate. Look at that, there are actually quite a lot of cars involved. One of them is apparently on fire. It doesn't seem like it is, but okay. There is a pedestrian, which was probably caught in the whole thing. When I hover over her with the mouse cursor, she turns into a T-pose, because of course she does. And when I zoom in, yeah, she's not exactly looking all that well, is she? Her face kind of says it all, and her hand is not exactly looking very healthy now, is it? But it's absolutely no problem for her. She's just going to stand up. She's going to look as if she picks up her phone to take a quick selfie, although the phone is actually not modeled because I guess all the vertices were spent on teeth. And not long after, I noticed this cargo airplane that was very realistically taking off from the airport. And this was kind of like a breaking point for me, to be completely honest, because since then, I just started to notice these things a lot more. Alright, I'm gonna continue with this little rant, so bear with me. The more I build this city, the more I just notice all these kinds of problems, because the city is now quite big. It's at 100,000 population already. When I got the 100,000 achievement, apparently it was only achieved by 2.7% of people when I'm recording this video. So this is probably something that a lot of people haven't experienced yet, but let me tell you that yeah, for example, the traffic simulation suddenly doesn't feel all that pretty good because I'm building more and more of those multi-lane roads and I'm starting to notice that cars are really violently switching lanes. Even worse compared to CS1 actually, because in CS1 vanilla there was no dynamic lane switching. You only had to get it through Traffic Manager, but in Traffic Manager you could control the amount of lane switching. Here you cannot, and it seems like it's turned all the way up, all the way to 11, because even if I have like a 4-lane road directly in front of an intersection, then people are just going to violently switch into a lane where they don't want to use it, but it's empty, so they switch to it, and then just before the intersection they switch across 4 lanes back to turn left or something like that. And what's worse is that even, for example, buses do that. So when they exit a station, they are just going to cut across all lanes if they want to just use an empty lane. So yeah, that's not looking particularly great. So traffic fixing is, once again, just kind of weird. You have to learn how the game works. You cannot really apply real-life principles anymore at this population level. So yeah, that's quite disappointing. I could go on and on about all these kinds of issues that I noticed. For example, the dams are leaking. The water physics are just not particularly good. This weather switching, yep, right now it's winter, by the way, because, you know, it basically turned on the Soviet filter. It's still impossible to lose money. As you can see, I have already 77 million. I literally don't know what to do with it. I cut down all taxes, but the money is still going up, so not sure what's up with that. And yeah, many things. So do I even like playing this game right now? I mean, I kind of still do. It has its moments. It's kind of enjoyable in a weird way, but I suppose those couple of thousands of hours in CS1 made me a masochist, so what do I know? And also you have to take into account that whether you like it or not, whatever you think about it, I am a YouTuber, right? So I am making a video out of this. I am making this channel. I'm trying to keep it alive. So it is what it is. The reality on YouTube right now is that the popularity of CS1 is tanking very heavily. So, you know, CS2 is just going to be here to stay no matter its state. It is what it is. I ain't making the rules. But, you know, it's not like CS2 is completely broken, even though pretty much every single aspect of it is somehow bugged or glitched. But still, it is playable. It is, the performance got better, at least somehow. So it's definitely not in a completely unplayable state, but at the same time, it's just in a pretty disappointing state. And looking at the patch notes, the game is just not being patched fast enough, in my opinion. But I guess it couldn't be, really, because there are just so many things that are wrong. So yeah, I'm gonna continue playing this game though, because on the other hand, it's kind of the vanilla experience that I never had in vanilla CS1, because I got into CS1 in 2015, yeah, sure, but I was constantly just switching cities because I did not really like how I started them. So right now in here I reached 100,000 people. I don't know, maybe we can take it even all the way up to 1 million. So that's just gonna be interesting to me, and you know, you can look at it as I'm playing the game, so you don't have to, right? At least until some of the things are more polished or just, you know, fixed. Okay, so time for a quick live recap at the end of today's video. Let's see what we built today. So, Here are the dams. Unfortunately, they are leaking. Right now, you can see it. Let me unpause the simulation so you can see the water going. The animation is not particularly great because it's looking as if the water is just going into the dam full speed. And yeah, this. I tried doing some landscaping around here. Nothing helped. I actually kind of made it worse. It was a little better before I touched it. This second one has it too on the same side for some reason. There are even these things towards the foot of the dam, so yeah, not particularly great. Now, since I grew the city quite a lot, we are starting to have a lot of issues. We are starting to have a lot of traffic issues, especially this intersection is quite bad, even though the traffic behavior in front of it is just stupid. You can see the violent lane merging even across all 3 lanes over here. I had to get rid of traffic lights because the traffic phasing is just absolute garbage. There's only a couple of seconds just for a couple of cars on the main direction, and then just a huge phase for the pedestrians to cross. You obviously cannot control it whatsoever, so I'd rather just not have those traffic lights there at all, and we will have to fix it somehow else. I already set up the where is it? The bus line. I just put it back into the industrial zone. I'm thinking of actually building a metro through the city because it might need it at this point, at this population number, so we will see. Incinerators are also not keeping up, as you can see. I don't know if it's bugged. I was reading something about it. Apparently it is because, you know, of course it is. Everything is. So I had only this incinerator. It has completely full storage. I built a new one right here and immediately it got the storage full as well. Apparently it's accepting outside garbage, which is like a problem right now. I don't know. This recycling center is not really doing much for some reason, and there is this, what is this, industrial waste processing site, which only collects garbage from industry. So that's kind of nice actually, because I can then switch these incinerators to only work in the city and completely disregard the industry. So that's gonna be okay. But there are definitely a lot of things that I need to improve for next time. So in the next episode, I would like to focus on the finishing of the rework of the city center. So I would like to do this service area. I would really like to finish this highway, or at least continue it towards this point where it's going to create an interchange. Maybe I'll take it further. I will connect these railways finally, and I'm just going to get rid of these just mines over here because they are just completely ruining the scenery of the city. Gonna get rid of this twisting road in here as well, and, you know, just polish this area so I can do some nice cinematics over the city. Okay, so those are going to be the plans for next time, and you know, we are just going to gradually expand the city. I'm gonna think of some interesting projects to show you, and in time the city is going to have that quantity that is just always nice looking, right? That was the case in Vanilla CS1 as well. If you had that huge city, huge metropolis, it was actually kind of impressive to look at it, at least when you know, look at it from this kind of perspective, zoomed out. Zoomed in, it was not that particularly great, but I guess I'm gonna go for something similar in CS2. I guess that's what everyone is doing these days anyway, and we're getting there. We're definitely getting there with the right lighting, with the right photo mode settings. The game has its moments for sure. You can get some beautiful views if you play with the sun, if you play with the colors. So, you know, I like that about CS2. But anyway, that's gonna be all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, then you know the drill. Please do all the things below it, all the clicking, writing, subscribing, sharing. Big thanks to channel members who directly support this channel and me in what I'm doing here. I hugely appreciate all your support, guys. Thank you so much. If you also want to become channel members, there is a link in the video description or the button just below the video. All right, that will be all. Thank you again. Take care and goodbye.